This podcast is for parents of children who have been diagnosed with a specific learning disability. It's not unusual to experience a full range of emotions as you come to terms with your child's diagnosis. I hope this brief presentation will give you helpful information, allay any concerns you may have, and point you towards some sources for more in-depth information. Let's define it. Specific learning disability means there's a disorder in one or more of the basic psychological processes involved in understanding or in using written or spoken language. What's it look like? SLD may manifest itself in an imperfect ability to listen, speak, think, read, write, spell, or do mathematical calculations. And it can include conditions such as perceptual disabilities, brain injury, minimal brain dysfunction, dyslexia, and developmental aphasia. So let's look at what it's not. It doesn't include learning problems that are primarily the result of visual, hearing, or motor disabilities, mental retardation, emotional disturbance, or environmental, cultural, or economic disadvantage. And it's an important and delicate distinction. There are several special education services available for individuals with various disabilities, but SLD is limited to the language processing deficits. So, is your child unusual? Well, we're all unique, aren't we? SLD is, in fact, the most prevalent type of learning disability. In fact, over 5% of all students in the US have been identified with a specific learning disability. Now, the majority of those students spend most of their educational time in the general education classroom. And it's worth noting there is a disproportional representation of boys to girls when it comes to special ed. Here are some common academic impacts. Well, it's the core issues: reading, writing, and math, dyslexia, dysgraphia, dyscalculia. But there's another way to think about it, and maybe this would be more helpful. Think about it in terms of processing deficits. Input. Having issues with visual or auditory processing can confuse the information you're trying to receive. Integration maybe make it hard to make connections or get the big picture. Memory issues may impact the storage, and problems with written or oral expression will certainly impact the output of any information you've had. So where does it come from? Well, no one knows for sure. There are a number of possible factors, but the largest single cause is a weak underlying cognitive ability. And frankly, there is no cure for that because it's a psychological problem in language processing, and therefore it's with the individual for the rest of their life. But they can learn to cope. And that is the good news. Because good assessment and good instruction can make an enormous difference. Here are some classroom strategies. Using stations. I do this in my classroom. Use small groups. It allows for technology to be used if we don't have a lot of laptops available or other resources. And I can chunk the information as the students move around the room in short order. You can use formative assessments, and you can do them frequently. It helps me as the teacher know exactly what the student knows and what they need to learn, and the student can see their strengths and weaknesses and watch their own growth. Direct instruction is another great strategy. It's come under some scrutiny because it's, boring and scripted, but the research shows that explicit instruction works. Let's consider lastly this idea of the self-concept for a learning disabled child. They often experience negative feedback, and more so than some of their classmates, maybe being called stupid or feeling dumb. And experts in the field have suggested that improved self-esteem is a good treatment for some of their behavioral, social, and academic problems. But recent studies have shown that children with disabilities do not necessarily have a poor self-image, and some of them use self-esteem as a coping mechanism. Here's some great resources. RickLavoie.com. He's been doing work for years in special education. Excellent work. Wright's Law is fantastic if you're looking for parents' rights and information on due process, and specialeducationadvisor.com is a wonderful and simple, easy to use resource. Here are some of the references I used. Best of luck.